My name is Rolando Sosa. I immigrated to the United States with my mom, dad, brother, and sister in 1971. It was the last year of the Freedom Flight, so we actually were one of the few lucky Cubans who were able to fly here. My father, however, did have to go and spend 3 years in a labor camp in Cuba prior to coming to the United States. And his crime was basically wanting to immigrate to the United States. My entire family, outside of my immediate family, is all in Cuba. I have 8 aunts and uncles on my father's side. I have 3 aunts and uncles on my mother's side, and with all the cousins and the related family. So I have a very large family in Cuba, mostly in central Cuba, which is Santa Clara, but I have a few members who live in Havana, the capital. What you need to know about Cuba is that it's a wonderful paradise type island whose people are happy to be there and are happy to work and very creative. I count myself lucky to be Cuban and be creative in my profession. And effectively what they want, and the reason they're happy about what they have is because they may have very little, but they know how to enjoy life. Cuba has a lot of benefits. It's got gorgeous beaches, it's got gorgeous mountains and valleys and plains. It's actually one of the largest islands in the Caribbean. So it's got really good weather. It's kind of very hot. It's a tropical island after all. But the people enjoy themselves in different areas of the islands, and you do actually get to see the many different cultures that are available within the island itself. The reason I think that you're finding a lot of people going out in the street and protesting is simply because they've had a lot of years of difficulties. You know, in Cuba it's hard to get, for example, I have one of my cousins has COVID, and they're trying to figure out how they can help him because they can't go to the hospital because he's not sick enough. And so it cost them a crazy amount of money if they can find 1 lemon. So they found lemon juice somewhere, which is not real lemon juice, but it's a synthetic product. But you know, you would think in a tropical island that all these things would be available. In fact, they're not. And so the problem is, you know, there's lack of food. There's health care, but there's no medicine. The government doesn't help them. There's no safety net. There's rationing of electricity. So basically they have rolling blackouts. They can't get most things that you would take for granted here. As a matter of fact. And so people are kind of upset over that, and you know, the government is not able to help them in any way, shape, or form. The sad truth of that whole situation is the government #1 reason for why they can't help the people is because of the U.S. embargo. And so the reality of that situation is that embargo may or may not be the influencer or the one causing the issues there, but it's certainly blamed for all the issues in Cuba according to the government. So the people know better, the people understand that's more to it than that. However, their hands are tied, and when they do go out to the streets, they get jailed or they get killed or they just disappear. And unlike here, where you have to be seen by a jury and a judge and a lawyer, in Cuba you just disappear and you have nobody that can answer your calls or your questions. You just disappear. We, as American citizens, and I'm privileged enough to be a naturalized American citizen, need to write our congresspeople, our congressmen and senators, our president, vice president, anybody who will listen to us and explain to them the difficulties that our friends and families in Cuba are having. We also have to explain to them that, in my opinion, the embargo hasn't worked since 1962, the year I was born. And it's not going to work in another 60 years. The reality is that we need to change our course with how we deal with Cuba, because we're really penalizing the Cuban people, not the government. The government, politicians are well off. They have all the benefits that the citizens do not have. The reality is, in the 80s, Reagan, had a detente with Gorbachev and asked him to remove that wall. And next thing you know, the Soviet Union and communism in many areas collapsed. I think that that's a great blueprint for how we should be dealing with Cuba. And initially, they will see things in a better way, the government there. But over a short period of time, I think that communism will collapse as we know it. And the people in Cuba will be free to be able to act very similar to what, with life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. No different than our Declaration of Independence. I think that's what I'm striving for Cuba to become, and the citizens of Cuba, and my family in particular.